Hello, welcome to the Blessed Lord channel. This is another My View News and my take on an article from the townhall.com, and it's titled Mandatory Depression Screening, a Depressing Thought. Now, I will get into this first. I haven't really been to the townhall.com much. I don't know how valid of a news source that is. I would like to see in later time if more of this can be confirmed or if it's just, smoke and mirrors being propagated like sometimes happens on alternative media websites. Um, I'd like to see this on a little bit more mainstream one just to validate it, because sometimes we are tricked and what we think is a real news headline and sometimes it's not necessarily the case. But regardless, after reading this, I am nevertheless concerned, you know, and what it gets into, and I can't remember everything like all the agencies or whatever, but it gets into that there's this federal agency task force that's trying to get something passed and tied into the Obamacare to where to force all the health institutions to do mandatory depression screenings of all U.S. citizens. And it goes on to state that there has been a change in the HIPAA to where now healthcare professionals can release more things upon an individual than they could before to agencies, i.e., such as the FBI or etc. And I even saw something where they can tie some of this in to the FBI NICS federal background check systems, which federal firearm owners like myself used when conducting background checks, i.e., the Form 4473 for potential weapons purchasers, whether that be for a rifle, pistol, shotgun, etc. We all have rules we have to follow per the ATF, and it just concerns me because, like, I can see this being twisted to take decent people to put them on more and more lists to where they can't purchase a weapon or have a right to bear arms. And I see this as another loophole being formed by the administration to slowly erode our gun rights from us, because they're so upset they can't just push it through openly like they wanted to, that there's been so much backlash, and it's just very scary to me. It really, really is. Because when you see stuff like this in the news, it just proves my point. Like when we're talking about the country going into more of a police state, the Orwellian status and nature of things to come, the more and more that this country is starting to reflect like that novel 1984, and just the New World Order system, the beast system rising. This is all part of it, to slowly control and subjugate the masses, and how much further can they go until everyone is declared not fit for this or that, And when does it stop? The second we allowed this national health care, the BS just keeps piling on more and more and more and more, And also, how is it fair that, like, if someone couldn't afford to get health care, or what if we lost our job or left our job and now we haven't been able to acquire health care yet in our transitions, and now at the end of the year we have to pay, I think it's the $600 or 2% of our total net worth income, whichever is higher. I mean, to me that's so bogus. I mean, how are you helping the people when you're creating another tax to issue upon them? If someone's like hurting to where they can't afford to get the health care at the moment, how is penalizing them for the $600 or 2% of their income helping them? I mean, if you can't afford to get the health care, how can you afford to give away 2% of your income to a bogus law and tax put in place, And I think it's like it rises to like 2.5 the next year, you know? I mean, it's just absurd to me. And I also state that because I'm noticing it now because I fall into one of those categories where I'm having to worry about this since I left federal employment. And, neither here or there, um, I'll get through it. God will bless us and we'll see what happens. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, our founding fathers, rose up for a lot less. If I'm not mistaken, if my memory serves me right, they rose up over like a tax that was too high on tea that led to like the Boston Tea Party, for example, and other things. And look at what happens in this country. There's a tax for everything nowadays. If you make overtime, then it goes into a higher tax bracket. I mean, there's a tax thing set up for everything. It's so silly. Why can't this country do like some countries and just go to a flat sales tax and that just be it? Um, it's mind-boggling. Like the elites and the one percenters are always coming up with ways to keep the middle class, or totally erase the middle class. And the system is built as such to keep the poor poor and make them poorer over time. They've done it to a way to where now it's almost impossible to do the American dream, to be financially free, because we're getting put slowly more and more into a debt-based system, becoming debt-based slaves on a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 job. If we're that lucky, most people have to work more. Most parents in the household both have to work jobs in most cases, or else you just can't make ends to meet. And then unfortunately that takes away from the children and time with our children and time with ourselves. People may say a lot of things about this and that in the European communities, like, oh, they're so lackadaisical, you know, but they do have a little bit higher quality of life standard than we do in this country. They get more time off than we do. They have a smaller work week in most cases. They do have more breaks for this and that, and it leads to a better quality of life. Man was never meant to break their butt working for people all day long, every day of the week. It just wasn't meant to be that way. And the more and more I keep seeing stuff like this happen, the more and more I see more taxes and placed on us, the more and more I see them making loopholes to try to come after our guns and just our freedoms in general. And how many times do these loopholes add some more burden on the system as a whole? And when they do this, do you guys not think that the healthcare communities aren't just going to raise the rates for healthcare so they can minimize the cost to themselves for having to do mandatory depression screenings or mandatory this and that? And like I say, just like politically correctness, where does it end? Because once you open that door, it's almost like Pandora's box. You can't really close it again unless you just get rid of it all and start fresh. And I really wish that we do get a new president in the coming year that will repeal this all, but I honestly don't see that happening. But once again, give me you guys' thoughts on what you think of a mandatory depression screening for all Americans. How do you feel about that? I mean, to me, it just doesn't sit well. It's another way to just make loopholes to take away people's rights. I mean, how much longer until damn near every American is basically labeled like a domestic terrorist or a threat to the government? It's getting absurd. But like I say, most of this country is frogs in the pot and the temperature's getting rose, and they're never going to notice it until they're cooked just like crawfish. It's going to happen. But Christians, as it gets worse, remember, be of good cheer, because we know our end game through the Lord, and we know that we have a place in eternity, and this world is nothing but a vapor. And so that's all I got to say about that. Whether we can truly change this country or not, I really doubt it. But it still doesn't hurt to get our voices out there. I'd rather get my voice out there, even though we can't do something, so at least I know I voiced my opinion or concern, versus just keeping quiet and being like the rest of the sheep and just like going along with everything. I'm not a go alonger. I'm not politically correct, and I never will be. And I'm proud of that. And thank God that He created me to have the wisdom and discernment to think for myself. God bless you all, and may you all have a wonderful day. Goodbye.